Hi team. So what we are going to do today is we are looking at planning refusals. Planning refusals are a fantastic way of finding good potential off-market deals that a lot of developers wouldn't feel comfortable enough to be able to pick it up and confidently be able to fix and address the issues. So they only want to chase after simple ones, which is normally just the normal consented approved schemes. So we've got consented approved, we've got refused, which basically means that someone owns a site or has an option on a site. An option is basically an option to buy from someone. This is quite a typical thing with developers. They haven't bought the land, but they have a legal agreement between themselves and the landowner. Look, I will buy your land or your building, but I need to get the planning before. I don't want to take a chance buying your building, then getting the planning and getting a refusal, and then I can't do anything with the building. So an option contract will be signed between the developer and the owner, and it basically states that the developer will effectively have an option for 2 years, and that'll give them enough time to be able to put a planning application together, put it into the council, even possibly get a refusal, and still have enough time to be able to deal with the refusal by going back in again and trying to fix the issues for refusal. So we've got consented, we've got refused. Refused, like I said, is a really good way of finding good off-market deals, purely because some of the issues for refusal can be very silly, very simple. There's a missing report, a missing survey. It was due to scale, bulk, and mass, so it's a bit too big. The best advice I'll give you is normally refusals come down to two things. Either it's a planning-led refusal, so it goes against policy, local policy. So in planning terms, there's local policies and then there's national policies. National policies, it's led by the NPPF. So these are things that kind of everyone has to adhere to. And local policy basically means that it's just local to that borough. So, local boroughs might have an Article 4 in place because they just don't want HMOs, the houses where you chop them up and you put a load of people into. That's a local policy. And different boroughs will either have Article 4 because they want to protect their HMOs and they don't want any more, or they might even have an Article 4 against office to residential, which they want to protect their office buildings. They don't want any more of them, converted. They're local policies. Planning, national planning, is obviously guided by the NPPF, and effectively it's just the national standards, national rules. Stuff like the minimum size standards is a national policy. Everyone has to adhere to them. So if it's a planning issue that has come out, then you need a planning consultant to be able to fix that for you. If it's a architectural-led argument, so if it was down to design or scale or bulk or mass or street scene or character, or some sort of design-led issue, then that's where your architect would need to come in and fix those. So we're going to look at some today. We're going to see, what type of issue it is. We'll see if it's fixable, and if it is, then fantastic, we'll put that on our list. And if it's not, then we'll just obviously skip past them. But I will say they are a really good way of finding good sites. I've got one at the moment where it's a refusal, and I knew straight away we could fix it because the main point for a refusal was the building was a community use building. But I knew there was changes to the change use order coming in, which meant that it wouldn't be in a D1 building anymore. It would be under Class E. So that protection would be lost. So yeah, that's why it's kind of useful to know the use class order, how it works, because you can use that in your favor in order to change refusals into consented schemes. Okay, so what we're going to do is let's just choose a borough. So we'll choose Richmond. In fact, let's go to let's go to planning. Okay, we're going to type in Richmond, and we are going to look for refusals. And we're going to look for developments and PD, I think, and office. I think. Actually, I might leave office. We leave it on, but I do know Richmond have an Article 4 in place against offices. We don't actually know if they're going to reinstate it. They've got until August of 2020 to see if they want to put an Article 4 back in place, because again, offices used to be B1A use class, because now it's all changed. We got the new Class E. Offices fall within E, as well as everything else, like the shops, the restaurants, the retail units, the office buildings, the nurseries, the dentists, the doctor surgeries, all that kind of stuff, all falls into now one use class. Just basically means you can interchange really quickly within, like, you can have an office one day, you can have a restaurant the following day. It's just you're just changing within the same use class. Before, an office was B1A and a restaurant was A3, and you need planning permission, which is quite lengthy and it's quite speculative. You know, again, a case officer will be ultimately the one making the decision whether he's going to give you that permission or not, and you know, he doesn't have to give it to you, and most times they won't give it to you anyway. So and it would take a lot of money and lots of consultants and a lot of time to be able to get that change of use from office to retail, or retail to restaurant. At least now, whatever the building is, if it falls within Class E, you can interchange straight away. It's just straight, it's an immediate thing. You can have one office one day, you can have a restaurant the following day, or you can have a doctor surgery the day after. That doesn't really make a difference. I think the main reason they've done this is because COVID created a whole host of buildings that were a bit redundant. You know, there wasn't a huge need for having all these restaurants anymore, or having all these doctor surgeries and dentists or office buildings. So now they just made it easier for them to be converted. Again, for years, there was always a lot of protection on doctor surgeries, dentists, and nurseries. They're kind of seen as a community use building. Very, 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 very difficult to try and convert or develop. You could put in a planning application, but I would say you'd stand a really high chance of it being refused, always. But that's all changed now. So look, we're in Richmond. We're going to look for office development PD. We are going to look. We're looking at refusal. So I don't know how many refusals there could be. Let's go back 3 years. Let's see if it's too many results, then we can always tailor it. So we're going to do 3 to 30, 3 to 50. Here we go. Okay. We are looking at refused, and we're going to click. Dog, can you stop, please? Okay, so we are. Here we go. Okay, I expected more refusals than that in Richmond over 3 years. I'm quite surprised by that. Okay, let's. Working through.
Excuse Dave, we can't see the spreadsheet.
All right,
Can you
okay.
share?
I'm just thinking whether it's what this. I've found one. Okay, let me just share. Lovely, thanks, Annadelle. You are going to have to remind me to do that, because I can't see what windows you're actually seeing. Okay, so that's actually fine. Okay. Okay, so okay, it's only 4 come up. To be honest with you, 3 of them are going to be no good because they're too small for us. Demolition of an existing salvage yard building, sewage and to provide 8 apartments. Okay, so what we are going to do, that would be the only one I would probably be interested in. So it was a couple of years back, and we are going to click the URL, application number. There. Adjacent to this address. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go to Nimbus. We're going to pop that in. And it's a side that's adjacent. All right, okay, so let's do that there. That is a really good site in a really good, nice part of town. Just take a look at it. Perfect. Residential at one side, residential at the other. And it's an obvious infill. So
Yeah, Dave. Sorry, we couldn't see the Nimbus again.
I do apologize. Okay, bear me 1 second. Why doesn't it actually follow me when I'm on a window? Okay, so look, this is an obvious infill. So we've got residential at one side, residential at the rear, and residential here on the right hand side. And I think we even have residential, yeah, well, as you can see, all residential led. So it's an obvious infill. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to see why that got refused. And then we're going to see what the current situation is on it. And if it's fixable, we will be sending a letter out. So info on this site. Planning. Demolition. So it's our demolition's already taken place. It's got a refuse. So let's open up. Here we go. So we are okay. All right. So look, this one we won't be going ahead, and I'll tell you why. This one's actually been submitted. He's got a refusal. He's actually gone for appeal, and he's still dismissed, which means he hasn't got the consent. So we're just going to go straight to the appeal. So he's got his refusal. He went to appeal, and we're actually going to see. So what happens is, if you put in your application to the council, they normally, if it's full planning, it takes not 3 or 4 months. If it's permitted development, they've got to come back to you within two months. If they come back and they give you a refusal, you can go back in and you can appeal that. And this time, what happens is, you don't appeal it to the planning people, you appeal it to someone above them, which is called the planning inspectorate. And basically, their job is to come in and review everything at both sides. They're like a kind of a mediator. They look at the issues that the planning people at the council came up with, and they look at my side, and they'll review everything. And they're impartial, but they've got the power to overrule everyone. So let's, here we go. We are going to read. The appeal is made by Mr. Frank Columba, he's the owner, against the council. And it's proposes development of the demolition of the existing salvage yard and create 8 apartments. The appeal is dismissed and planning permission is refused for the demolition of the existing salvage yard to provide 8 apartments. The appellant has provided 2 completed and executed Section 106 agreements. One enables a financial contribution. So we often talk about Section 106. This is basically an agreement between the developer and the council, and they agree terms like, look, the development will take X amount of time. The applicant will pay the council 60 grand in SIL and also another 120,000 in the form of a Section 1 contribution that's going to go towards updating the roads, upkeep of the local church, and maybe an update to the local school or something like that. It's like a taxation, really. Here we go. One enables a financial contribution to be made towards the provision of affordable housing. So this is basically where when you go over a certain threshold, you have to provide a portion of those units to a housing association, who will either use it as shared ownership or council housing. And basically they will it's a conversation you need to have with them, and basically you have to sell them at a reduced price. But some developers don't want that element within that, the kind of social housing element within their development, because maybe they're trying to, like, this is quite an expensive area and there's only 8 units. He doesn't really want 2 of those units. If he's selling it, all of them, to like professional people, high-end people, and he's charging, I don't know, 750 grand per apartment, the 2 he's going to have to give to the housing association could be up to maybe 50% off. And then they're only going to put low-income people, maybe with a load of children, in there. So it's going to bring down the value of the rest of his properties. So sometimes developers will just pay an extra amount of money. They'll say, okay, well, you know what? I would have had to all that, give you those 2 units. It's worth X, Y, and Z. Look, why don't I just give you an extra 150 grand? So then I don't have to give you those 2 units. So sometimes the council will, the housing association will actually say, okay, well, you know what? I'll accept that. And then the developer is happy because now he can sell all of his 8 units to the open market without having to give them 2 to a housing provider. And then he's got no control over who goes in there and what have you. It's quite common actually in the UK. And the other seeks to restrict access to car parks and parking permits. Okay, so look, restrict access to car parks and parking permits. This is basically what I mentioned earlier. The council don't really want you parking on the street, so and you don't actually have enough parking on site. So they've said, look, you're going to have to sell some of your units to people who just don't have a car, because look, we're not actually giving you any parking permits, and that will be restricted access to car parks and parking permits. So we're not going to give you any parking permits to park on the street. So if you do want to sell these units, you're going to have to sell them to people who don't have cars. Again, quite problematic, you know. Luckily, where this is situated, he's quite close to a train station, but you're on the outskirts of London, so there's high likely chance that the people who will want to buy these will have a car. So that's a problem he's going to have to get over now. The council set out 10 putative reasons for a refusal in its appeal statement. Based on these putative reasons, the main issues are as follows. The effect of the proposed development on the character and appearance of the area. Okay, cool. So we've talked about this before. Who does he need to go to fix the character and the appearance of the area?
The architect.
Fantastic. The effect of the proposed development on parking availability and highway safety in the area. So this sounds like a kind of planning-led issue. Who would I need to go to fix this issue?
Planner.
Yeah, planner. Whether the proposed development would make adequate provision for cycle refuse and cycle storage. Who's fixing that issue? Take a guess. Yes, the architect, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a design issue. They've designed a building that didn't adequately address the cycles, that's where all the bikes are going, the refuge, i.e. all the kind of waste, and the recycling storage within that design. So that's the architect who failed on that aspect. So the architect has two issues to address, and the planner's got one. The effect of the proposed development on the living conditions of the neighbouring occupiers, with particular reference to outlook, privacy, and light. Who's fixing that issue?
The architect.
Yeah. The effect of the proposed development on the provision of employment floor space, with particular reference to industrial floor space.
The architect also.
I would say this is probably going to be the architect, because it's talking about employment floor space, with particular reference to industrial floor space. So basically, it's a little bit planning led. I mean, the architect could take it on, but I would say it's probably best a planner do that. But I've seen architects take on challenges like that. So to be fair, either one could really do. But I would say to get it done properly, a planner. The effect of the proposed development on the provision of waste management facilities. I would say that's probably an architect. Whether the proposed development should make appropriate provision for affordable housing. Again, that's kind of more planning led, so that's going to be your planner. Whether the proposed development would provide an appropriate standard of housing, with particular reference to housing mix, internal space standards, and inclusive access. All right, okay. So I would say that that's going to be a kind of, that's a conversation that the architect and planner should be having together, because the planner will know what the council want in terms of a unit mix. In fact, the architect could just Google that in a way and find that information. It'll be on the council's website. Internal space standards, so they should know what the natural size standards are already, and inclusive access. So again, all that information can be pulled from the from Richmond's government website. To be honest with you, these are all fixable. I mean, it's not exactly straightforward. There's a few issues to address, but they're all fixable. You know, I didn't see anything that would be, when you see something called in principle, that means it's a no-go. Just walk away. You're never going to fix it, because the council just will never give it to you if it ever says in principle. If it goes against major policy or the NPPF, or it's like development in the green belt, then that's an issue you're never going to fix. But these are fixable, to be honest. Yeah, these are well fixable. And a good architect can come along with this, redesign this, and actually fix these issues. And a good planner could fix some of these planning issues as well. Reasons: the appeal site comprises of a large salvage yard that has been in use for many years, but is currently empty, and the exemption of a small rudimentary office building. The site is enclosed by corrugated metal fencing. Surrounding roads are a mix of residential and commercial. Okay. The architectural quality along this section of Nella Road is mixed, with piecemeal and less sympathetic development, as noted by the Witten and Hitfield Village Planning Guidance. The White Hart Public House opposite the site is noted as a building of townscape merit. Building height along Glen Road vary, but no more than 2 stories. The proposed development would occupy the full width of the site. The 4 terraced houses would mimic terraces at these. Okay. Okay, I'm just reading some of this, just pull out some information that might be relevant. It's good, because what the inspector has done is he's kind of gone into detail here. I'm going to pull out a couple of bits that it's mentioned that would need to be addressed, really, if you're really going to take this and try and start from scratch again. but noting some of the issues the council raised and also what the inspector raised. So they've said, look, there's no real kind of symmetry and character in the areas. You know, it's a bit. He mentioned the word piecemeal, which means that it's kind of piecemeal together. I mean, it's a bit a mix and match. He said, look, you shouldn't really be going more than 2 stories because there is a lot of 2-story buildings in the area. Nevertheless, pitch roofs sloping down from a central ridge are commonplace. Materials vary from red brick to painted render. There's also considerable variation in terms of fenestration and shop front. So there's quite a lot of different designs going on in the area, which is good, because then they can't really say, look, you're out of keeping, because what is the keeping? It's just too different. The proposed development would occupy the full width of the site. The 4 terraced houses would mimic terraces here in terms of height and design, while they could incorporate real or mock chimneys to reflect existing properties and would benefit from being set back behind a small front garden. They would have a satisfactory effect on the street scene. So he's saying, actually, look, what I think you're proposing actually works reasonably well here. The commercial unit and flats would be contained within a 3-story structure with a crown roof. Due to the nature of the site boundary, it would project forward of these houses here. The use of red brick ground and the design of the fenestration throughout would be appropriate for the location. However, the crown roof would be large and bulky when viewed along the road, accentuated by the forward projection, the lack of a central ridge, and the use of tile cladding. So the overall structure would be noticeably taller than the 4 proposed terrace houses and would be overly dominant with the street scene. So he's saying, look, the house I've done, I really have an issue with, but look, you need to redesign and think carefully about these commercial units and flats, because that seems to be a bit bulky here, and it's noticeably taller than the houses. So look, and it'd be overly dominant. That's quite key, overly dominant, which means, look, it's actually out of keeping with everything else there within the street. Here we go, that's quite a good word here. The 2 balconies on the front elevation, so the front of the building, would appear incongruent. That's just another word for saying, another way of saying, look, it's not in keeping with the area. And a road lacking in such features. 2nd floor balcony would appear particularly jarring and prominent given its height. So again, that's saying, look, you need to address that 2nd floor balcony. The design approach of an interesting corner building makes sense given the forward projection. Moreover, the principle of removing an unsightly yard and corrugated metal fencing would represent an enhancement in this rather architecturally mixed part of the road. However, the proposed development in terms of its scale and design of the 3-story structure would be unsympathetic and poor quality. So basically saying, look, I think the house would be okay. Look, you've got your flats and what have you that you're trying to suggest, commercial unit. Look, that probably needs a little bit of work. Again, probably the architect probably needs to do a bit of work with this, to be fair. But it's a good site in a good area. It's a good obvious infill. They didn't mention anything really about the kind of scale, bulk, and mass, saying it's way over dominant. A lot of this stuff is visual, so it's basically scaling it down a little bit. I think you remember there was something about the overall structure would be noticeably taller and would be overly dominant. So then probably scaling back the flats bit, because that's obviously the out of keeping bit on all this. Maybe reducing the flats a little bit. However, in terms of scale and design of the 3-story structure would be unspecific and poor quality. So look, address the 3-story part, the 2-story part is fine. Concluding on the main issue, the development would have a harmful effect of the character. Therefore, it would not accord with policy and local plan. While this policy seeks to make best use of land, Its overarching aim is to secure high architectural and urban quality design with development required to be compatible with local character and existing townscapes, including in terms of its scale, height, and detailing. So basically, look, he's not saying, look, you can't develop here. He's just saying, look, what you've proposed is probably not what we want. You need to go back and do a better job. That's all it's saying here, if you read between the lines. Okay, I will say that, you know, after a while of reading some of these refusals, you'll be able to kind of pick this stuff up. I know it's not exactly, all this information doesn't just automatically just, you know, fall out, and it's obvious if it can be fixed or not. But look, you got to remember, I've read quite a few of these planning applications now, so to me, I can see this information, but you know, after a while of reading some of these, you'll be able to pick up on these. I mean, I know there's quite a few issues here. There was about 10 of them. Normally, you won't have 10, but parking availability in highways. He's saying that because, look, we're not going to give you the parking permits. When I came out, I looked that during the day that they only had a few available on-street spaces, and it's only a snapshot, and it was during a working day. So I can imagine people are at work. Therefore, it indicates a potentially high level of parking demand in the evenings and at weekends. Thus, it would be appropriate to carry out a parking survey in line with the council guidance to establish whether there is sufficient capacity. Again, if you're not going to be having parking on site, I would have expected this guy to have done a parking survey. It'll be interesting to see if this guy has actually got a planner on board. For making a silly mistake like this, I'm going to take a suspect that he's using the same architect as his planning consultant, which, remember what I said before, they need to be two different people because they're two different jobs. Now, you got to remember, a planner will never do an architect's job because he doesn't know how to design something and create something that's visual and, you know, and create something that's pretty, that will kind of blend itself in with the local area. But architects who know how to do that think they can do the planner's job by, oh, well, it's, you know, I know enough about planning to be able to make this work. I will do the planning side for you as well. But that's wrong. An architect is an architect, a planner is a planner. Never mix the two. They do talk to each other in order to try and create something nice. But the biggest mistake I always see with developers is they try and use an architect to do planning stuff as well. In fact, there's one guy who we're trying to buy a site off of, and we're buying it with the planning. He went to a planning committee last night to talk about his site, and he didn't even come up. He didn't bring a planning consultant with him. He just turned up a normal developer. When he was asked all these kind of complicated questions, he wasn't able to fully understand or, you know, give a good enough answer in response. And as I imagine, he got failed. He failed the planning. So he's got no planning, and he spent about £200,000 up till now getting that planning, and now he's got, you know, he's got failed. He doesn't even have the planning. So he could be potentially £200,000 out of pocket purely because he didn't spend another 3 or 4 grand for a planner to come with him to be able to help him with his planning application. Silly mistake. Parking can be part of the Section 106 agreement between the developer and the planning authority. They do talk about planning. Sorry, they do talk about parking within this document. So it's quite an important document. It does take quite a while to actually back and forth agree terms with the council. I've actually seen the Section 106 last even 1 or 2 years, and you can't actually get your planning. That's why you often see planning pending. It's because, look, the guys at the planning authority like what you want to propose, but because the authority and the developer haven't agreed to all the terms in Section 106, until that's agreed, they won't give you your planning consent. That's why it says planning pending for the most part. It's because it is section 106. So he's saying, yeah, look, based on all the evidence, it will increase on-street parking, which could result in negative effects on the highway. So look, because that's quite important, this section here. So in conclusion, it is not demonstrated that development would have an acceptable effect on parking availability and highway safety. Therefore, it's in contrary to policy. So they quote the policy here in terms of you haven't complied with the parking aspect. Okay, so they even have an issue with, look, I know you're providing cycle parts to the development, the parking cycle spaces, but look, with the houses, they don't actually access, you can't access the two cycle spaces per house, which are located in the rear garden. So you can't access the road from where the cycle is. So it would mean that all future occupiers would have to bring their bike through the property. This would not provide desirable or convenient access and may discourage occupants from owning or using a bike. Because you've got to bring your bike through the house, it might encourage people not to buy the property or even occupants from actually owning the bike. How silly is that? And then obviously they're referring to refuge and cycle storage, and it's against policy here because they didn't actually address it properly. Quite a few issues here that would need to be, it's all part of what was discussed above. They talk about the employment issue, waste management. Okay, so basically, maybe a smaller scheme would work there if they could get some parking on the site. Yeah, it's probably still worth reaching out to. It's only 8 units though. I mean, if you're losing one or two, you're down to 6. I'm not sure if 6 would be enough if you're not creating enough space there for it to be worth 6 spaces. Let's actually take a look at the design. Limited drawings. That was the flats and the office space they had. See, this is the existing building next door, which is 2 stories. They didn't have any issues with the 2 stories here. It was this building here that they had an issue with. So it might be a case of maybe just seeing if the numbers would work by just creating maybe 5 houses, maybe some parking along the side here or something like that. Or see if the numbers work with, yeah, so you got 4 houses, say maybe 5, maybe lose to this space here part and create some parking spaces around the side or the back. They also had an issue with the balcony coming out like this. So it's not, I mean, it's not exactly pretty, is it? Look how kind of jarring this is. It's not exactly pretty. I mean, this big corner protruding right out to the street. Yeah, I'm sure they could have designed a slightly better building than that, to be fair. I can see why the council really had a bit of an issue with this section. It was really only that section. The rest of it, they didn't have any problem. So, do you know what I'm going to say? I think it's still worth a letter. Find out what's going on with the site. Maybe there's a way of tying this up with maybe just 4 or 5 units here, create some parking space, like I mentioned. Maybe see if we can lose all this big section, because that's really the one they had an issue with. Yeah, let's send the letter out to that one. We obviously, we know we have to start from scratch again, but there's a lot of information there we can use. That's the good thing. We can see all the appealed issues and decisions and what have you. So the next consultant along, the next architect along, can let you use all that detail to create something that the council do want. It wouldn't be straightforward, you know, you're trying to deal with a site that has a refusal on it, but you're dealing with a motivated seller as well. He's had this site, he put planning in 19, so that's 2 years ago. It's still vacant, it's still derelict, he still doesn't have any planning permission. He might have run out of money, so he can't do it himself. So I would say this is probably a good one to chase. Motivated seller, a council that probably do need the properties in a good area. I think there's something to be done there. Okay, so let's I'm going to Anadel. I'm going to just,
Yes, Dave. I already take a
oh,
screenshot.
fantastic, great. I'm just going to edit under your great, good work. All right, okay, so where were we? We were looking through that list. So there's only one on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close the spreadsheet down. I'm actually going to go back to export, and I am actually going to see if I can adjust the planning. Okay, we're going to go Richmond again. I just want to make sure we've definitely exhausted that area, Richmond. Residential opportunities. What's that? Okay. 16. I'm going to do 3. Export. An interesting little site there, is that? Title. Secretary of State of Defense. Okay, they own that piece of land there. When I'm in an area as well, just while waiting for the information to populate, I do really like going on let me turn this master map on, and basically it cuts out all the noise. So look here, look, lots of trees, lots of cars. You can't really see you can't really see the boundary of these because there's so much information on there, but if you just click on the master map, it strips all that away, and you actually get to see straight away what could be a potential development site and what isn't. What's that? Council own that land. Okay. And it just really quickly, in fact, actually, if I search here, I can actually open it up properly. And straight away, I can literally just scroll around. If you were to do this on Land Insight, they would actually charge you a lot of money, and there's only so many ownerships that you can view. Sorry, there's so many master map views that you can actually only view before you actually get tapped out. And you got to pay quite a bit of money to try and upgrade your account. But that's look, visually, I can actually see nice houses along here. Sometimes there's a gap here, so I can zoom in, or maybe there's a gap here, so I know I can build something on the side. Just looking for unfortunately, there's no way. You'd have to come across this road here, which is difficult, but there would have been a possible site back there, or even here. But again, it looks like you'd have to come across here, and it's difficult. These can be quite interesting ones. If there was a gap here, you could probably do a little bit of a land assembly here because the gardens are big enough. Probably fit a couple of units in the back there. If there was a proper gap, this is too tight. But if that house wasn't there, you could probably come in and maybe do something there. Same here as well. If there was a slightly bigger gap there, you'll probably put these land assembly with these two gardens in place. And again, here, look, you can probably do a couple of houses, 2 or 3 houses in that space there. Difficult to do when you're in quite urban areas. You need to kind of go a little slightly further afield. It's because Richmond is such a high value area that there won't be many opportunities where you can like build a house on the side, because developers would have been developing here for years, and it's such a lucrative area. A lot of the opportunities have been stripped back, to be fair. What I do look for as well is the length of gardens, because if these 2 gardens, just say for argument's sake, if these 2 houses weren't here and the gardens came down to here, I'd know straight away that look, there's something on across the road, so I know I can replicate that opposite. So I can probably, and if this looks like a slightly longer garden, I could probably do a garden assembly between these 3 or 4 people. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4 gardens. I'd need to just buy the bottom of the gardens and title split that off and put 2 units up. But those 2 units could be houses in Richmond, could be like £1 million a house. So just by tying those little 4 gardens up, getting planning permission, building those 2 houses, that could be worth £2 million just building those 2 houses. All right, okay, we'll move on. I just thought when I'm in an area, I like to just quickly look around to see what's around and see if there's any opportunity. All right, so we are on refusals. Okay, so we've done our search. Do we get our results yet? Let's do it again. Richmond. Research opportunities, offices, developments. Look at going back to say 5 years, 3 years, 15. Export. All right, okay, this is what I would have expected to see. Can you all see my spreadsheet? Yeah. No,
Not yet, Dave.
okay, all right. Okay, so we've got 25 results. So straight away, what I need to do is I just need to go over to this filtered search. So I need to choose this. Then I need to go up to filter, and I need to put a filter on this because we're going to filter out all the ones that are too small. So 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. I'll just leave the rest. All right, okay. So we've got we've dealt with the age unit 1 already, so that can actually delete. So we've got up to 2 additional stories to include 5 to 9 new dwellings above an existing block of flats. This is a new PD rule that's just come out. So it's class A. Is it? So effectively what it is, got a block of flats, you can actually potentially get permission to permit a development to build 2 additional stories on top. Now it's not straightforward, very, very difficult, because you're going to take the whole top floor off, which means what happens to the tenants in the flats above. You've got to drill through all the flats to create sprinkler systems and fire safety to update the whole building because of Grenfell. That was a building, a big tower block in London that got burnt down a few years back. Then you potentially put all the tenants up. You know, there's issues with leases. You've got to serve all the notices as well. It's very, very, very complicated. So I'm going to be keen to see what the issue for Refusal on that one was. So the conversion and extension of a site, including Ruston and Carlock building to provide 37 was refused again this year. That's the same site with 37 units, mixed use comprising of 9 units. So 3 office units. Okay, we're not interested in building offices. Actually, you know what? Leave that on there a minute. And the erection of a residential development of part 2 and 3 4 building. All right. Okay, let's start at the top and work our way down. We're going to click this one. Okay, Barron's Road. I know Teddington really well. 2 additional stories on top of a block of flats. Okay. Application form decision. That has to be the smallest amount of documents I've ever seen in my life. 1 document for an application form, 1 document for a report, and 1 document submitted for drawings, and then there was a decision. So it was a very, very lack of information submitted. Okay, so it's refused on the following conditions. Reasons for refusal. By reason of the increase in height and bulk in relation to the host building, the proposed amount and addition of up to 2 stories would be out of character and detrimental to the visual amenity of the locality, as well as the openness and character of the adjoining open land, having an adverse effect on visual amenity. The proposal would therefore be contrary to the aims and objectives of the NPPF. We've mentioned that before. That's planning-led issues, and the local plan, again, another planning-led issue, including policies, again, local policies, and supplementary planning documents by design, quality design. So really poorly led design, and also major planning issues. When it gets to planning issues, you got to be careful. Trying to, you know, I'm not saying it's not easy. It's definitely not easy trying to fix national planning policy framework reasons for refusal, but it is possible.
Can you share the screen, Dave? Sorry, we couldn't
You should
see
have
the document.
should have mentioned. You should have told me before I've done all my spiel.
I don't want to interrupt. Sorry.
That's fine. Don't worry. You can interrupt me anytime. Okay. Okay. Okay, so it's interesting. The applicant did seek formal pre-app advice. So pre-app, again, remember, is where, look, before you go in for a full planning application, you go in for pre-app advice. This is what I've done with that site I mentioned earlier, where they had a refusal on the site because it was a community use building. I knew it was going to be a bit difficult, so I got in for a pre-app consultation with the council. A lot of people wouldn't do it because it costs time and money, and you got to pay architects and planners to do information for you. But it can be quite useful because now you can get some feedback from the council and you can implement that feedback in your full planning application. But what they've done is quite interesting. Look, they did seek formal pre-app advice. However, now remember, this is the council who've written this. However, the council's recommendations for amendments were not followed, and the scheme was found to be contrary to policy and guidance. Therefore, the application was subsequently refused. So look, we told you what to do, but you didn't take our advice. What do you want us to do? We can't just give you the consent now, can we? All right, okay, so is this reason fixable by reason of the increase in height bulk in relation to house buildings proposed amount would be out of character? So they're saying adding 2 stories would be out of character, but they haven't said if adding 1 story would be out of character and detrimental to the visual amenity. All right, possibly. I think it could be possibly fixed. Actually, let's take a look and just see. This is the thing. I'm actually. Do you know what? This would be a good one to put in front of my planner, actually, to see if we can get this fixed. I'm going to copy that. Just going to. All right. So we are back to my. So this is a good one to actually put in front of my planner. So I'll actually find out what the situation is with that and see if it's fixable. It might be fixable with 1 story, maybe 2 might be pushing it. In fact, do you know what we're going to do? We're just going to take a look and see what the building looks like and just see what's around there, because they obviously had an issue with 2 stories. Always worth just seeing. All right, okay, so look, nice quiet residential street. Obviously something quite far back there, but possibly 3 or 4 stories over there. But on this street, they're more concerned about I'm more concerned about trying to 3-story, with 2 additional stories be out of keeping. It would be a little bit because it would be a little bit out of keeping. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 there. That's only a couple of doors down. We've got 1, 2, 3 there. So maybe 3 would be accepted. 4 at a push if they went back. Do you know what? Let me check this with my planner and then nice little interesting site there. Oh, but 7 already on it. That's fine. It looks like this work's been carried out already. Do you know what? I think that's probably worth chasing up. Annadelle, put it on your list. And
Okay.
let's see, where is this? All right, okay, so here we go. 1 Barons Court. Here we go. That's the title number. Just put it on your list. Mark it as red until I speak to my planning consultant and find out if it's actually fixable or not.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. It's quite new as well. I think they only got the refusal recently, so chasing it up. Okay, so I'm just keen to see what refusals they've got on this 37 unit scheme. Refused in 08 of 21.
Yeah, we couldn't see your screen again, Dave. Oh, there.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to take a quick look at what this is. What's the name of the site? Type, it's a listed building consent. Okay, well let's skip that one. So we don't want to be dealing with listed buildings. Condition stories, yeah. Let's click on this. Okay, so this was the next one along. So this is a mixed use development comprising of 9 apartments and 3 office units. And we're going to find out why this was refused. All right, okay, reasons. I'll go down into text in a minute, but I can see loss of a B2 unit, which they had an issue with. The developer didn't agree affordable housing on the site. Again, that was the section 106. Amenity space basically means that he wasn't creating enough amenity space, outdoor space for the residents. So maybe he didn't have enough he didn't have any balconies for flats, or maybe he didn't have any little kind of courtyard space for a little flat to go out, open out the double doors into a little courtyard space, or little gardens for flats, or it's just outdoor space and overdevelopment. So he's trying to get too much on the site. All right, okay, detailed reasons. The scheme would result in a loss of a B2 industrial land, and in the absence of satisfactory marketing evidence or suitable alternative evidence to demonstrate the lack of demand for the continued use of this use, the scheme would be contrary to these kind of planning issues. Okay, so he just needs to market it, the top bit, for about a year to show that there's no interest in it. Affordable housing contributions. The proposal, by reason of its failure to offer any appropriate contributions towards affordable housing or to justify a nil contribution, would be contrary to the aims and objectives of the NPPF. Again, you just need to agree something with the council on that one. Again, a fixable issue. Amenity. The proposed buildings, by reason of their bulk, siting, height, and design, would represent an overbearing, dominant, and visual intrusive form of development that would be detrimental to the amenity of the adjoining residents. Okay, so basically, you've gone too big, too high, which means that it would have an overbearing and detrimental and negative effect to your neighbours. And plus, by having it that size, there could be a harmful loss of daylight to residents, your neighbours, because if it's too big, you're going to block out the light to your neighbours next door. Overdevelopment. Siting, height, design represent dominant and incongruent. We've seen that word before. You'll often see it again. Incongruent overdevelopment. Just means, look, you've gone too big. You need to redesign this, because you're having a harmful effect with light for your neighbours and also harming the character and appearance of the area. These are all fixable. All right, all fixable. I would say I would definitely be putting a letter out to this one. Now, what's happened with it since? Let me just info. One's the site. Private owner. Paid. Well, we know under availability would be if the property was advertised with a local agent or a commercial agent. One of the reasons was he wasn't marketed properly, so we know that this guy hasn't even got around to marketing the property. Otherwise, that would actually have a plus on it. So we know he hasn't even done anything since he got his refusal. And because it's so new, when was it? They published 17. Actually, let me just take a look. So maybe you need to click on this one. It's the same application. I'm going to suggest that we actually reach out to this guy, because I think this is fixable. All right, okay, so what we're going to do, Annabelle, you're going to put that on the list as well, and just highlight it as red for now. These ones, all these refusal ones, we're going to highlight as red, because
Okay.
I need to go through them one more time with my planner, just to make sure that there isn't anything we have overlooked. One thing I'm going to check with this one, there was mention of network rail. Where is there a rail section? All right, let's move on to, let me take a look at what's else on the spreadsheet. So that was there, mixed use 9 units. You've got the title number for that, haven't you, Annabelle?
Yes, Dave. I do have a screenshot.
Brilliant. And we're just going to look at the last one. I'm going to bring it up now. All right, okay. So I'll try and this will be the last one we'll do actually, because I'm conscious that this is quite a lot of information to take in, and I'd rather do it over multiple sessions, and then it'll sink in a lot better than trying me trying to do this over 3 hours and only half the information goes in. Okay, so we've got Recourt and Conby House, William Lane, Mortlake, London. This is for 14 duplex units and 6-3. Okay, so okay, fine. Decision. March 17. Oh, wow, that's a lot of reasons. I'm going to stop here actually. It says listed building. I don't really look at listed, but we'll take one look at it. But I would have stopped straight away. But look, they didn't agree affordable. It's sort of a listed building issue. Design, not enough amenity space, carbon emissions, forecourt parking, transport, refuge, ecologically, archaeological, acoustic, sound, air quality. There's a lot of issues there to fix. In fact, probably a little bit too many. So the development, in the absence of a legally binding agreement, remember what the agreement's called? It's called Section 106, to ensure the on-site affordable housing provision fails to address the identified housing needs and therefore contrary to the aims and objectives of the NPPF. Again, remember, that's the National Planning Framework. Reason, listed building, in the absence of a structural impact assessment, the application failed to demonstrate that the development on site A would not result in harm to the grade 2 building. Again, I wouldn't even go near it. Any time I hear listed building, I don't go near it, to be fair. Too many problems, more extra costs, longer delays, and lots of stuff out of your control you can't control. Yeah, too many issues there.